Good afternoon, everybody, and a huge welcome to everybody joining us today at the Geneva Association. I'm Jo Scott. I'm the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer for Lloyd's of London. So I'm joining you from rainy, cloudy London today, I'm afraid. I'm really delighted to introduce three amazing women to you today who have been recognised this year by the Geneva Association for the brilliant work that they do. And that has been recognised with the Geneva Association Women in Insurance Award. So we have the winner, Nina Arquint from Swiss Re Corporate Solutions, and also two fantastic women who the selection committee have awarded special recognition prizes for. Lucia Silva, Group Head of Sustainability and Social Responsibility for Generali, and Heidi Delobelle, CEO of AG Insurance. Now, the role of the insurance industry in promoting sustainability and the wider ESG agenda and our ESG goals as they evolve, all within the context of climate change, is occupying many of us, and I'm sure it's going to for decades ahead. And I think what's clear to all of us is there is so much to do, but today we're going to talk about the good work that is happening, the concrete achievements that have already taken place. So that's what these brilliant women are here to talk about today, some of the things that they've learned along the way that hopefully some of us can learn from too. Before we move over and start talking to them, I just wanted to go through a bit of housekeeping with everybody. So first thing to say is that we have reserved half an hour, 30 minutes at the end of this session for a Q&A, and there are two ways to ask your questions, and we're really hoping we're going to get some good questions today. First way is you can raise your hand and the moderator will unmute you so you can ask your question live, and the second way is to type your question into the Q&A, into the chat box, and put it in there, and we will read that question out aloud for you. The other thing, just to make clear to everybody, is that we're going to be recording the session today, so hopefully people will find that interesting and useful when they go into it in the future. So that was the housekeeping from me. And I was going to hand over first to Nina with the first question of the day. So welcome, Nina. And my question for you. So many insurance organisations are now moving away from underwriting coal as part of that progression away from fossil fuels and towards net zero. Swiss Re was a bit of a first mover in this space. Your thermal coal policy that you issued in 2018 was the first to address underwriting in insurance. As one of the first movers in this space, as you look back now, what societal value has this had, and how do you think what you did really influenced the industry going forward?
Thank you, Jo, and good morning, good afternoon to everybody here on the call. And let me maybe start by saying, Jo, how privileged and honored I feel to be here with all of you today with the amazing women sustainability leaders in insurance, and to actually really celebrate this progress towards a better world as the title of this webinar is. I think it's something that also makes me proud of being in a position in an insurance in the industry we're working in, but also being in a role where I'm actually able to make a very specific and concrete contribution to that overarching goal. So to your question, Jo, maybe a few words first about the motivation behind the thermal coal policy in the wider scheme of things. I think it's quite important to start there, and then I'm more than happy to also zoom a little bit in on the thermal coal policy that you've mentioned before. Our vision, as we articulated for Swiss Re, is we make the world more resilient. And this vision very clearly can't be realized without sustainability principles, if you think about it. So we see sustainability as a long-term value creation, both for our own business as well as for society. And this is really why we take a strategic approach to sustainability and also have the ambition to to make kind of to have sustainability as part of doing business. It's the way we do business. And sustainability, it's also important for us to have this understanding. It's not just about managing risk, but it's as much so, or even more so, also about seizing opportunities. And we, as many others, representing other insurance companies here on the call, support the worldwide reduction of the greenhouse gas emissions to limit the global warming to this 1.5 degrees Celsius, right? And we've also signed the Paris Pledge and the UN Global Compact business ambition for 1.5 degrees Celsius, because we are convinced we need to take an active stance and really make our contribution to reach this net zero emissions by 2050 across the whole of our business. I mean, the operation side is maybe the easiest part, but then also the investment side and the underwriting side of the house, right? And so in order to achieve this goal, we all know we need to support a massive reduction of greenhouse gases in the real economy while supporting the firms to transition themselves to a net zero economy. And that's where insurance really plays into. And that needs a clear pathway to the greenhouse gas emission reduction with exclusions in the most carbon intense area. There's no way around that, but that needs to come in combination with an accelerated transition for the rest, where insurance can provide risk transfer solution services for viable, innovative solutions that we will see out there. And I guess as an insurance sector, right, partnerships are super crucial for us. And that's why we are a founding member of the Net Zero Asset Owner Alliance and the Net Zero Insurance Alliance. I think these are overarching challenges that we can only tackle together in these partnerships. Now, you also specifically asked me about the thermal coal policy and the societal value in there. Look, the way I think about it is, as a global reinsurance company, we are estimating and valuing risks. That's our business we're in. And insurance is one of only a few sectors, I would say, that is actually able to take a long-term view of risks. And with our thermal coal policy, which, as you mentioned, was one of the first in the market, we are signaling to the market and to our customers that we see long-term risk in carbon-intensive industries, which actually, in our view, is the reality of this carbon-intensive risk. And meanwhile, the assessment of carbon-intensive industries is shared by the market, by the broader industry, and most insurance companies have restricted coal as of today. And now one could argue, well, by not giving risk transfer capacity, we are in effect increasing the cost of capital and also driving the carbon-intensive industries out of the business. And that's maybe also an important point to mention when we were working on our thermal coal policy and we're then also rolling it out. I think one point to really consider is this is not a black and white, and you cannot just step away from one way to the other. Whatever you come out with, whatever position you take, it needs to be something that really supports the transition in a credible way. So it's not that we would turn around and leave our customers from one day to the other. And that's why it was also important for us to take into account different approaches and timeframes for different markets and across developed and emerging economies. I think this is something that sometimes when there are expectations out there from different stakeholders, we just also have to remind them. We need to find pathways, and we need to provide the transparency to the market and the customers what they have to expect from us. And I think that's also where then communication becomes a really important part there. So I would stop here, maybe, Joe, and say that's a little bit from my perspective what I would want to add to your question.
Thank you, Nina. That was really, really interesting. And I think it echoes many of the conversations that lots of us are having at the moment. It's not straightforward. Things are not black and white. And you really have to recognise that we're on a journey. It's about transition, and different customers will be at a different point and on a different pathway. So thank you for that. That was really interesting. I was going to turn now to Lucia. Lucia, a few years ago, Generali decided to stop underwriting and investing in coal. And you identified a really important transition risk, that shrinking the coal industry will mean workers and communities in coal-dependent countries need social support and reskilling. So as part of that, you've set up the Just Transition initiative, and it really has gained incredible momentum, particularly in Europe. So I wonder if you could tell us a bit more about that.
Thank you very much, Jo, and hello, everyone. So I'm pleased to talk about just transition, because I think it's really the big issue now. And Nina already raised the point around the sustainability being not just E, but also S and G. So sustainability being really kind of the challenge of the complexity. And in Generali, we really think that, if you want to be sustainable, just to make it really simple, you need to make sure that your decisions are meets the needs of people, planet, and for government is prosperity, for companies is still profit. So, the best decision ever that makes, all the stakeholders happy about what you have been doing is really about putting together these three different variables. And that was, in a way, the approach we had when it came to think about the transition and our approach to, first of all, coal companies. The idea was really about pushing for the transition and using, again, our, let's say, power of investors and insurer to, in a way, push these companies toward a transition. But the transition cannot be just only an environmental transition. It has to be also a social transition. You have to think about the workers and reskilling of people and the wealth of the communities to make sure that you can put together the environmental piece with let's say, the inclusion. So what we want to get, I think, in Europe is not only to have a greener economy, we want to have a greener and more inclusive economy. So the social piece is super key. And that's why, I mean, it of course is more complex, because it's not just about engaging companies on the environmental piece. It's also about kind of pushing for this just social piece. But I do think that if we don't approach the issue of the transition, putting together the social and the environment, we will miss some pieces, and we leave someone behind, which is not the, what a sustainable company wants to reach.
Thank you, Lucia. That was really insightful. As you say, I think with the huge emphasis on climate at the moment, the E of ESG, it really has come to the fore, but we mustn't forget the S as well. So next I wanted to turn to Heidi, if I may. Heidi, AG Insurance's commitment to sustainability is reflected in sustainable and responsible investments like infrastructure projects, renewable energy, social housing loans, as well as sustainable products such as pensions and long-term savings. You're a provider of healthcare products, so AG must be really aware of the COVID-19 health crisis, obviously as a physical illness that has affected many of us, but also the mental well-being connotations that it brings as well. How are you seeing this manifest for customers, and how has AG mobilised to support your customers and perhaps your own employees as well?
Thank you for the question. COVID-19 was indeed not only a crisis of physical health, but also one of mental health, of which the consequences are not clear today. But if I focus first on the physical health, as in many other countries, the health system was heavily demanded in Belgium, but we just made it, and that thanks to the enormous effort of medical staff. We just remained within the capacities of our healthcare system, although we can't forget the different dramas that happened in retirement homes, etc., etc. People that got isolated. But from an insurance perspective, the protection foreseen in our contracts was already that everyone is covered for COVID-19. So from an insurance point of view, there were no issues for the client. But we took initiatives to support the hospitals in this difficult periods by covering, for example, for free, the responsibility and the accidents at work of the volunteer workers they attracted during the crisis. And also in other domains, we took up our societal role and took actions to cope with the different effects of the COVID-19 crisis. For example, covering temporary unemployed people, or covering home delivery executed by restaurants who try to save their business in this crisis, etc. But we did even more than that. And as mentioned before, a secondary effect was that also the mental health was under pressure. And there I want to highlight two initiatives that we took. The first was creation of a spin-off, AG Health Partner. That's a new initiative where AG works with corporate clients on a one-to-one basis alongside trusted health service providers to develop strategies and action plans linked to improvement in the mental and physical well-being of their employees. And 2020 was supposed to be the year of the official launch of AG Health Partners, but then came COVID-19. And while the program had been designed as a physical face-to-face experience, social distancing prevented from this, of course. So AG translated the entire program into a digital offering, starting with free webinars to keep employees physically and mentally fit, and also to give advice how they can stay connected with their colleagues, but also with the company. And close to 500 people registered for these events from almost 350 employers. And why does this matter? Belgium research suggests that one of the biggest problems impacting the economy is the long-term absence from work due to mental health problems. And it is predicted that by the end of 2021, more than 500,000 people in Belgium may be incapable of working. So in Belgium, that means that's 1 out of 10 of the working population. So a big problem. And the measures taken by AG Health Partners in helping companies to get people back to work has been critical. And as an employer, AG is also an employer of more than 4,000 employees. We took also similar initiative to support our employees to cope with the different changes. And yeah, it's not about going suddenly towards 100% telework and the linked risk of disconnection, but also about coping with the fear now of getting back to the office, and what we did since September. And then maybe another initiatives, but I can be more short, is the problem of loneliness. So loneliness is also an increasing problem. It existed already before COVID and lead to social exclusion. Even before COVID, 46% of the Belgians reported already to feel lonely from time to time. And AG responded by working alongside, again, with a number of other organizations, in this case 8 organizations, to launch a web platform. The platform was developed by AG and matches volunteers with 8 organizations to give a helping hand or supplies to the people that are lonely. And so the site has useful tips on how to step out of this circle of loneliness and how you can help those around you struggling with loneliness. So that were 2 initiatives that I wanted to highlight.
Thank you, Heidi. That's it's interesting stuff, because I think it's something that all of us are struggling with at the moment. And it seems to me that the pandemic has amplified and accelerated some of those issues that already existed, whether it's around mental health and well-being, or loneliness. And it's really fantastic to see the insurance industry step up as you have done, and playing a really important societal role to help those, and showing that flexibility and that willingness to play your part, as we all go through this, terrible pandemic that I'm sure is going to have repercussions for years to come. So thank you. That was really interesting, and something would be really good to come back to at some point, as everybody is at different stages of the pandemic, and as employees start to come back into the workplace, and we see what the long-term impacts are. So thank you so much. I want us to now move on slightly, and talk a little bit about the you amazing women who've won these fantastic awards, from the Geneva Association, the Women in Insurance Awards. And I wanted to ask you all, how do you characterise your experience working in insurance as women, and your own paths to an executive level? Has it been more challenging as a woman? What's made a difference? Perhaps share some of the secrets of your successes, and perhaps share, how you think things have changed in the last few years. I wonder if I could go to Nina first on that one, please.
Yes, more than happy, Joe, to also share a bit my view on this. So I think this question about your career as a woman and all of that, I don't think it really depends on the insurance sector. For me, that's sector agnostic, I would almost say. I think the one thing that I would really say about insurance, and look, just listening to Lucia and to Heidi, and also kind of considering my own experience, I think working in the insurance industry for me has been something hugely fulfilling. And I hope that we can actually attract many more female talent to also join us in the insurance sector. I think that's really the one thing that I can say. And if I can also promote a little bit risk management, for me, it's a fantastic role to influence what the company is doing. But that being said, I think what for me is really more the decisive factor is the environment you're in, the company you're working for. I mean, that really what influences you. And I can say for my own career, look, I have been very fortunate in a way that I have been able to work for employers where actually this being a woman has not really been something that has affected me much. I think it's way more the D&I topic, the diversity and inclusion topic, and for me, rightly so. I mean, gender is one of the important characteristics of it, yes, of course, but it's so much broader. And I have almost always felt as an individual way more than as a woman. I guess with that being said, my own experiences about also building and growing my career, I think one of the advices that I can share or personal experience that I've had is, look, be courageous, believe in yourself, and take the chair at the table. Each of us has something to offer, and don't shy back. And also do look for an environment where you find people that support you. I think coaching and mentoring in one-to-one settings, I guess that's where I got the most support. And it's also where I feel I can help younger talent to also grow. It's these conversations where you can truly make a difference. You take the time, you invest in younger people, and you share with them, right? And I guess for me, that's almost the one point that I would want to make. And I'm shying a little bit away from stereotyping. And because I think the more we do that, the more we box ourselves actually in. But there is one observation still, whether I would want to accept it or not, but it is there. And it often comes up, and that's really this question around self-confidence. And I just last week met with an executive recruitment specialist, and I also asked him about it. Does he really observe that? And he said to me, yes, absolutely. And he told me that he's just about to hire a really senior executive position in a big financial company, and he had the top female candidate pulling back. And he said, throughout his career, he has experienced that again and again, but never from male candidates, always only from female candidates. And it made me think, I have to tell you. And so, yeah, this self-confidence topics might be something that is more broadly around that we might hope for. And I said, if we can help and foster that courage and to have the confidence and also build this environment for people around us where they can grow, I think that's the most meaningful thing we can do, Jo.
Thank you, Nina. I honestly think we have such a role, all of us, to raise up those around us and instill the confidence that perhaps people don't have on their own. I know that's something that I really, really struggled with in my career, and I had to kind of steel myself a few times. So really good advice there. Heidi, can I ask you the same question? What has your experience been, and what insights can you share on this subject?
Okay, with pleasure. So I think I have to say that insurance stays a men's world at the top, but it's evolving, at least in Belgium. But there is certainly still a way to go. But personally, I cannot say that I have the feeling that I had to work harder than men to reach the position that I have today. But you have to be supported by the right people. You have to be able to count on the right mentors who give you comfort on your strengths and who push you to pick up opportunities. And maybe women need that a bit more than men. So I would give, if you want, 4 tips to everybody to illustrate what was important for my career. So the first is that for me it was very important to figure out what is my driver, what gives me energy, and don't look at the others. Everyone will evolve at their own speed. The second is that you have to be proactive and take your career in your own hands. So give an early sign if you have the feeling that it's time for something else, so that the organization had the time to look for an opportunity. Certainly in a big organization like we are, if you give an early sign, then the company was certainly prepared to look with you for a solution. A third tip is maybe dare to jump outside your comfort zone and have confidence that you can do it, and let you help if needed by a mentor. And you don't need to check all the boxes before you can jump. And that's, I think men can jump easier than women. So we make our checklist and we are hesitating. So dare to jump. And the fourth one maybe is we have 3 children. So it was for me personally very important to make and find agreements with my partner at every step in our careers in order to combine the organization at home with the challenges of my job. And there you have to find a balance. So that is my story and my tips.
Thank you, Heidi. I'm also a member of the 3 Children Club, and it requires an awful lot of cooperation, doesn't it, to make it work. So I'd like to turn now to Lucia and your thoughts on this just super interesting subject that we could talk all day on, I think.
Yeah, actually, you are right. Thank you, Jo. And I could not agree more with Heidi and Nina. I mean, I don't feel like the insurance sector in itself is more like a male oriented sector than others. I mean, I think that, you know, all the societies is under transformation on this topic, and it's fine. I haven't never feel like I'm a woman, so I have less opportunities than a man. What I think is that maybe in terms of the relationship, the importance of relationship for women. This is something that Nina and Heidi already addressed somehow, highlighting the importance of mentors, of alliances. And this is something that sometimes we as women, we don't think about. We think that we can do everything on our own because we are strong, la la la. But at the end of the day, we really need alliances, and maybe like men alliances and or women like more senior or even sometimes younger mentors that can give you kind of different point of views and help you to navigate in the complexity actually. And I wanted also to raise a point around the insurance sector and his attractiveness for women, because I think that, is a kind of underestimate the power of change that you have when you work in an insurance company. For when I joined Generali, I look at, what is an insurance company, exactly what they do, because we have a lot of prejudice somehow. I realize how powerful we can be in ensuring specific technologies, enabling specific behaviors, or like investing in sectors that can really change the world, or really being a platform for relationship and putting together, like creating partnerships. So that is something that maybe women underestimate and the insurance sector is still kind of not really known. And I think that should be something that we can work on as women and expert of the sector as well. So
thank you, Lucia.
Thank you to you.
It's a super interesting one, isn't it? I think that insurance is a well-kept secret, actually. I'm sure we could all speak about the brilliant careers that we've had in insurance, and sometimes it can be tough, but you're right. I think asking for help is so important, but trying to build your confidence in for those around you as well. So thank you so much. So we're going to hand over now to Q&A, and I can see that we've got let me just check. In the chat, we have got one question, and then I was also going to just open up to attendees and see whether there was anybody that wanted to raise their hand and ask a question live. So I'm going to start with the first question that we've got in the chat here. And that is from Sharon Sproxton. When looking to assess inherent transition risk in the underwriting process, what would you identify as key areas to consider when evaluating this risk? I'm just going to see who might like to go with that question. Nina, would you be able to address that one?
Absolutely, I can give it a try, and maybe if my colleagues want to complement, please feel free. I guess when I take the question maybe broadly around how do you assess sustainability risk in the underwriting process, right? I guess the way we are doing it and what I found really a meaningful and strong approach is that we have a framework in place that is fully integrated into the underwriting process. And when I say sustainability, it's the E, it's the S, and the G. Now, obviously, the E is most developed. I guess we have the clearest understanding there. In the S, it's mainly about human rights and human rights violation at this point in time. And G is maybe the kind of the newest one, I would also say, where we also formulate a little bit the expectations we have on companies, right? But I would really expect that the S and the G will further develop. And the way we are doing it is that we give quite clear guidance to underwriting. Where is a bit the line where we say, look, that's the line we would not want to cross. Those are the things we would not be willing to support. And then you might have a gray area where it's a judgment call, but I guess this is really the approach around exclusions. And as I said before, exclusions are part of it. We can't transition without exclusions. But I guess the more important point, and that's where we are now focusing on and spending a lot of time in, is actually how do you get from exclusions to steering? And steering means, do you understand what sustainable business is? How do you define sustainable business? And how can you actually move your portfolio and also try to increase this more sustainable business? And how can you support your customers to actually become more sustainable and be in that field where you say, well, that's actually the preferred segment for you. So I hope that helps a little bit. But otherwise, feel free to just add a follow-up question, and then I can follow up.
Thank you, Nina. Yeah, these are difficult questions, aren't you? One question that we have from Maria Sassian is, for the companies that stopped underwriting coal, can you share what that cost you in profits? I'm sure that's going to be a question for a lot of people, actually. Lucia, do you have a
take? Yeah. I mean, in terms of, the precise number, it was kind of not that much compared to overall premiums, but was a lot of money for the business units that were impacted by this decision, for sure. So, and it was kind of, let me say, a process somehow. During which we, in a way, and this is kind of something I'm proud of, we work together with top management and the people involved in the underwriting process, and they got to that decision not just overnight. This is not something that can happen overnight, but definitely something that happened in their minds after a while, I would say. So we started talking about this topic in 2016, and then we discussed a lot, and then there was a dilemma, and was debated at different levels in the company. But at the end of the day, and I'm proud of it, it was a decision of the business. So in a way, they proved that the way they take decision is not only like profit, but it's like people, planet, and profit. So it's really about it. It's like kind of the beginning for me was the beginning of the transformation, the real transformation, the concrete transformation, where you have people in the business kind of thinking about the value that you create and having this wider concept of value. So, in terms of profits, again, relevant for the business unit impacted, but then at the end of the day, let's say opportunities were bigger than the challenges. And let me also say that I'm not sure that evaluating this kind of problems only on in the view of the profit loss, in a way, is the right way to approach it, because in terms of profit loss, you should also have a wider view in terms of the reputational risk that you don't manage. And that could impact on your clients' purchase behaviors and choices. So, if on one hand you can get profit from coal, for example, on the other hand, you may lose profit because your client decide to go to, to the next door, and because they don't like you, because you are investing or underwriting coal. So it's really about having this wide approach to this kind of sustainability topics.
Thank you, Lucia. It's interesting, isn't it? I think so much of the debate has been about exclusions, but there's huge opportunity here as well, as the world moves to renewable technologies and energy sources. So we have to look at it through both lenses. Some more questions here. And one from Deb Shugard, who says, thank you to you all, you're all very inspiring. I would agree with that, ladies. I'm just starting to bring sustainability into our culture, and I'm curious if any of you could share how you got started in sustainability and what guidance you could offer to somebody just starting out. Heidi, can I go to you on that one, please?
Yes. So for us, it's also a process. So we started with a focus on sustainability in everything that is investment. So we integrated really all the ESG criteria in assessing before investing. So it was not only a financial analysis anymore, but we integrated. And also if we invest in a company, then we try to engage and to stimulate the company to have a more sustainable behavior. But for us, it was more on our investment side. And then also for our people, how can we motivate our people and human resources to have less CO2? But now we are at a point that we say that's not sufficient anymore. We have to have a more holistic view on sustainability. We do already a lot, but it's not structured enough. So now we are creating a vision where we want to be and what timeline, etc., etc. And not only investment, but also underwriting, because your question before, what do you do in underwriting? It's not so easy for us because, we cover already flood, earthquakes, natural catastrophes, etc., etc. And as long as we are followed by the reinsurer, we said that it's okay for us. So that will be something to consider. But now also for our products, we want to evolve to create features in the products to stimulate our customers to a more sustainable behavior. And that's something that we try to do with all the stakeholders. How can we motivate them to adapt a more sustainable behavior? Our people, our customers, our brokers, etc. But we are still in the process, so we are not yet there. And also the communication around has to be strengthened. But I can say that now at the top, everyone is aware that we have to do something. Certainly with the floods we have had in Belgium in July, it's time to act.
Thank you, Heidi. And I'm sure that a lot of us are thinking about the COP26 that's taking place in Glasgow this year. And I think that has been a call to arms for many governments and sectors and companies. Lucia, I can see your hand up. Let me go to you.
Yeah, no, if I can add on this transformation, what was key is for sure the turn from the top, and so having leaders, inspiring leaders. And then I found also, because it is really about carrots and sticks, so also like putting goals, having numbers, and having clear goals that motivate on specific targets, and putting this goal in the balance scorecard of people. And I know it sounds like, not really kind of the super visionary, but I think that in terms of change management, you have to really balance the culture, the communication, leverage on the sense of purpose of people. But then at the end of the day, also be very strict and very precise, because sustainability is everything. It's very huge and there is no golden standard. So having precise and specific goals and making clear that people have to get there really help the transformation and accelerate.
I think that's right, and I always think underwriters love data, don't they? And they love targets, and that's the language really of our world, our sector. So I think it's really important that we put those in place. One thing I'd share from the Lloyd's end is we've recently appointed our first sustainability director, the excellent Rebecca Clement, who used to work with me in comms until quite recently. And we've really taken the view that everything we do at Lloyd's has an impact on our ESG goals and around sustainability. And we really needed somebody who could get their arms around it on a holistic basis. And so she's been appointed to that role, and she's setting up her team at the moment, and it just feels like a subject that needs to be elevated and absolutely at the top table. some more questions. Thank you everyone for these brilliant questions. So this is from Susan Holiday. Do you believe government regulation is required to make the market focus on other things related to climate and biodiversity? At the moment, only CO2 is really tracked, and even then not globally. Should there be other measures that we can track and potentially trade? Anybody would like to go for that question?
I can give it a try, and hi Susan. I know Susan from working together. It's a pleasure to know that you're on the call. From my side, obviously government regulation is an incentive and a driver, yes, of course. But I would caution in a sense that even the topic of climate and biodiversity both are huge. And I would not claim at this point that we are really all over the climate topic and the CO2 footprint. If you think about the data challenge and all of that, we have to really get to a good assessment and understanding of what your footprint is that you have in the business and so on. There's just so much going on, right? Clearly, biodiversity, I do expect that will be the next big topic also with TNFD. That's now being put in place. At the end of the day, it's for me a little bit the question about digestibility that we have, and only just looking at climate. I mean, there is a huge wave out there that we as a company have to deal with, and I guess that's the only word of caution that I have in all of that. That I say, well, you can only regulate so much at once. Now, that being said, for sure, it needs to be kind of a partnership in a way where you need the political side, you need the regulation that supports and drives, but it also needs to be at the right point in time and on the right basis. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Nina. It's we're not going to get this right first time, are we? We've got a lot to do still. The next question I have is this is an anonymous question. What is your view on a blanket coal exit across the world and how that affects the developing world where other options are not available? How does that fit into the social part of ESG? I wonder if that might be one for Lucia, thinking about the brilliant work that you've been doing in this space.
Yeah, for sure. Also in defining our coal phase out deadlines, let's say, we took into consideration OECD countries and non-OECD countries, because we are aware that there are different, let's say, speed and the transition can be, more expensive for those countries which are strongly dependent on coal. And in fact, also in our strategy, we really focus on and all the just transition and the engagement activities are really meant to address this point. The view is that at the end of the day, these companies will have to move, will have to make the transition. We think that you can differentiate between those countries that have already developed a kind of transition path and those who are still dependent. And there you need to engage, you need to create partnership, you need to create the kind of movement around the topic and somehow facilitate the process of the transition. So I do believe that there should be kind of, also Nina addressed this point, there should be kind of a tailored approach according to the status of the art of the different countries.
Thank you, Lucia. We have another question here from Thomas Chaseman. What is your view on the sustainability of providing fire or flood insurance to customers in high-risk areas that perhaps should not continue to be inhabited? On one hand, insurance against community risks of climate change, but on the other, also encouraging rebuilding in regions that maybe should not be developed environmentally. That's a tricky one. Would anybody like to address that one?
Maybe I can take it.
Thank you, Heidi.
I think for example, flood insurance, it's sure that the frequency and the severity will increase in the future. We saw it unfortunately this summer in Belgium. I think that if we want to give an insurance to them, then we certainly need an agreement with the public. It has to be an agreement, a joint effort of the private sector, insurers and reinsurers, and also government. Otherwise, it will not be assurable.
Thank you, Heidi. Sort of quite a related question from Karen de Paley. I understand that insurance premiums are based on the probability of the risk occurring. Given that some industries have caused more of that risk for all of us than others, are you looking at changing your underwriting to reflect ESG ratings of your corporate clients? So those that are greener pay lower premiums.
I can say a few words there, Joe. I'm in the space of commercial insurance, right? And so corporates are our clients there. And I guess the problem with the ESG ratings there are more than 600 ESG ratings available. The methodologies are sometimes very intransparent. They can change from one year to the other. Those of you who also have ESG ratings on your own company, you know what I'm talking about. And I guess with the data side and these ratings, they cause a big challenge. What we've done, we have with some of the leading, what we consider leading ESG ratings, we have tried to make a correlation assessment for our book of business. And I can tell you it's very difficult to find these correlations. And at the end of the day, I think in underwriting, you need that kind of correlation if you want to really make it a decisive part of your underwriting decision. Now, very obviously, you have lines of business such as D&O, where the governance aspects very naturally are a very critical part of your underwriting assessment. And there, very clearly, you do take ESG considerations into account, but more on a qualitative side than anything else. So I think this is a challenging topic. It's not easy to solve. The second question, do greener kind of pay less premium? I would very clearly say no. At the end of the day, profitability is kind of the key driver, and we need to write profitable business because we need to honor our promises that we are giving out when losses happen, right? And so the profitability is the key. And I guess if we can move the overall portfolio into more sustainable spaces, then that's a good thing. But I don't think that a better ESG rating today can result directly in a lower premium. I don't think that's the case.
Thank you, Nina. And Lucia has some thoughts to add. Thank you.
I was to kind of also highlight that for sure, like the role of an insurer is also to enable new technologies that are the renewable one. And Nina raised an important point in terms that these are technologies that are more risky, less known, so it's more difficult to really have like to apply the let's say traditional mindset. What we have been doing in Generali is really to study a lot and to understand what are the key success factors that can help us to really find a good, let's say, a balance between the risk that we get, but also the opportunity in terms of really contributing to the transformation. It's an open point still, so I agree with Nina, there is no low-hanging fruit. But at the end of the day, I think that if our companies start thinking about how to really put together the two, the profitability, but also the ESG piece, I mean, I think is the right journey, the right path.
Absolutely, thank you. I think I've probably got one last question to go before we just think about some closing remarks. And this one comes from George Brady, who thanks you all for a very insightful panel. And he asked whether this issue presents a good opportunity to address the gender protection gap in insurance, especially in developing countries. Anyone got some thoughts on that subject?
I can.
No? Heidi, thank you.
Yeah, I think that we have to be very alert to gender diversification and inclusion as a whole, but in every sector, not only in the insurance sector. But we have to do it not with hard targets, because, for example, we have now glass ceiling indexes that we are following, and we have the clear ambition to progress on the glass ceiling index. But if you have really hard targets from the beginning that are not reachable, then you will have other effects that are not good, or for men, or maybe if you have to reach this target to promote too young women, then you will maybe create a second glass ceiling index for the other women. So we have to be careful. We have to promote them, stimulate women dare to jump, like I said, and maybe to be more proactive towards them, because sometimes they don't dare to jump, but give the system enough time that also men stays motivated to work in the insurance industry. I have the impression that there is something wrong.
Yeah, me either.
We might have lost Joe.
Yeah.
And did we lose also the other participants?
No, actually, we have 83. So, wow, a huge opportunity. Hello, Joe.
Hello, sorry, I was momentarily disconnected there.
The magic of Zoom.
Yes, the panic was rising. Thank you for getting me back. Just as we start to wrap up, so it sounds like we probably ought to get out of here quick, although we might be pushing our luck a little bit. I just wanted to go to these brilliant women for some closing thoughts. Could I start, please, with Lucia?
Well, thank you, Geneva Association, first of all, because I think that this initiative really helped to raise attention on the role of women in insurance, but the financial sector and all over, in all sectors, and to the women that are connected, but also the men, please do strive, do believe, have courage, and especially for women, don't underestimate your talent, because I think that there are a lot of talents outside, and they are useful for the insurance sector, but also from sustainability point of view, to accelerate all this transition. We are really at the beginning of the big revolution, and we need all the best talent ever.
Thank you. Heidi, may I go to you now, please?
Okay, I want also to thank you, the Geneva Association, for my nomination. It was glad to be here. Sustainability is a very important topic, and I think everyone has to put it very high on the agenda, because if everyone pays attention to that, then only then we can beat the future, I think.
And finally, if I can turn to Nina for your closing thoughts, please.
Well, Joe, what is there left to say? I think Lucia and Heidi both wonderfully articulated the thoughts, right? Also my side. I said it before, look, we work in an industry that really plays such a critical role, be it on sustainability or on other important and broader topics. And I would only encourage us to, there are so many opportunities out there for each of us. And when these opportunities come across your way, do have the courage and grab them, and make your contribution. And that makes you strive, and that makes, at least it makes me very passionate about what I'm doing. And I guess the more we get people passionate and behind it, I mean, the more we can also drive it, because I think corporates, of course, they take their position and that's important, and the commitments, but that needs to be filled with individuals that have the passion, the energy and the drive to really bring these topics forward, do the convincing work in the company and beyond, to really make one step after the other towards this big challenge that we have to solve together. And in that sense, also my big thanks to the Geneva Association for all their support and leadership on these topics, and in particular also supporting women in insurance, which is a fantastic thing to do.
Thank you, Nina. You are all such inspiring women. I've really enjoyed talking to you today, and I hope people have also enjoyed the discussion today, and really showing how you brilliant women are making a difference in an industry, in a sector that is absolutely stepping up and playing its part in terms of addressing probably the biggest challenge of our generation. So thank you again, and I think that's it. I think we're over and out. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.